Oh, it's not. Yeah, yeah.
I know.
So you can see him.
Yeah, I would never thought that.
So can you just make sure that? Yes, I don't see that camera, but. And him.
Okay.
So could you get it so the laptop comes,
Yes, the laptop's set up like this now. So when her presentation comes up, but they won't be able to see him. Is that okay?
I think
So if he
that's fine.
raises his hand, then you'll just let them know.
I will still be able to see him.
Yeah, you're still gonna see him.
Okay, yeah, he and I,
So you just have to tell him when he wants to speak.
let me go tell him.
Yeah. It's a vision, so we can have. Yep, they have a lot of.
Happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Took a few days. Just another day older every day. I guess I have a birthday every day. My wife's still out in my steps.
What's the reason to celebrate?
Yeah, well, you could be good. I was doing we're doing children. Well, that's. Yeah, people. It's the only place I have it. Yeah, but oh, yeah. Better, yeah. How are you, sir?
I did well.
I got 2 degrees, psychology, only else, and she's. She's been a triple digit. Oh, yeah. Wow. You like thinking it's all that. And all on your 6.
Henry is not. Yes.
Yeah. There's no.
Digits of the person.
No. David, can you do one for one?
Oh, that's what's become. Yeah. No, we just see that so much. Yeah.
No pocket on one side.
Yeah, it's whatever.
That would be the best thing you think.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Ready, Mr. Smith? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The hour being 7 p.m. on Monday, August 14th, 2023. I'd like to call to order the City of Laconia City Council meeting. Before we go any further, though, I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and
Please. I pledge allegiance to
Allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Joined this evening by our recording secretary and city clerk, Katie Gargano. I'd ask to call the roll, but before that, I just wanted to let the record reflect that Councilor Lippman had indicated that he is out of town on a work conference and wouldn't be making it. Call the roll, be great.
Counselor Cheney,
Here.
Counselor Susie,
Here.
Counselor Haynes,
Here.
Counselor Boger,
Here.
Counselor Couch.
Here.
Mayor Hosmer.
Present. Thank you very much. We're also joined this evening at council table by city manager Kirk Biotti, and Glenn Smith, our finance director, is also joining us handling IT. Referring to this evening's agenda item number 7, which is acceptance of minutes from previous meeting. Under 7A, the city council regular meeting minutes of July 24th, 2023, minutes of the Laconia City Council meeting of July 24th were distributed to members of City Council on July 31st, 2023, with no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk. The minutes will be accepted as submitted. Moving along to agenda item number 8, under consent and action items. This is 8A, a temporary traffic order 2023-14 Belknap Mill Sock Hop request to reserve parking and to waive city fees associated with the event. This year's sock hop in Rotary Park will be held on Friday, September 8th, 2023, in connection with the event. The Belknap Mill has requested that 18 reverse angle parking spots on Beacon Street East adjacent to the Belknap Mill and Rotary Park and the small parking lot adjacent to the Belknap Mill, as shown on the attached map, be reserved for the event detailed as TTO 2023-14. This is a recurring event with no significant changes from the previous year's events. The Belknap Mill was asked to notify business owners who might be affected by the parking spaces requested to be reserved. They have emailed Fit Focus and all of the tenants of the Buzzio Mill to make them aware of the event, and the parking restrictions will be in place. The sock hop in Rotary Park will close out the Arts in the Park summer series and will feature the Rockin' Daddy-O's and a full band, a radio station with a live broadcast, vintage 50s and 60s vehicles that no doubt will be dancing in Rotary Park as well. The parking spaces on Beacon Street East are necessary to accommodate some of the vintage vehicles as well as vehicles related to the band and the radio station. The parking spaces in the small parking lot adjacent to the Belknap Mill will be used for display of additional vintage vehicles. What are the hours that this area will be reserved? I'm wondering if this is it sounds like an evening event.
2 p.m. to 8 p.m.
2 to 8 p.m. And if anyone speak to I know an attempt was to notify business owners was made. Did anybody speak to whether business owners were contacted? Actually, hello, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. And maybe pull that, introduce yourself just briefly and pull the microphone down.
Joe Druso of the Belknap.
Great. And one of the challenges we've had in the city is that we have all events like this, which are great, and we all want to support. Making sure we actually have some direct contact with the businesses that will be impacted. So you had
So I did
success?
hear back from the Fit Focus and they actually asked for a flyer. So they were excited.
Okay.
And that would be the only street would be 2 o'clock only for Beacon Trees. This parking lot wouldn't be till 4. And likely even probably closer till 5 is the response I'm getting from cars. So it shouldn't interrupt too much of the business day. I did not hear any response except for that they were sharing it with tenants. The shopping department did say have a great event, so.
Okay. So I guess just as a simple follow-up on that, we make sure to be diligent in continuing to reach out to the impacted businesses, that's. We have at times struggled to do that as a city, so if
Yeah.
you could do that, it'd be great.
Absolutely, yeah. I will make sure, I have to actually drop off flyers, so I'll make sure that I just personally tell everybody
Thank
and
you.
invite them.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks for your work on this. So right now, I'll be looking for a motion to approve temporary traffic order 2023-14 relating to the request by the Belmont Mill to reserve parking spaces in connection with the Sock Hop and Rotary Park as requested and waive city fees associated with the events made by Council Phelps, seconded by Council Susie. Any discussion? Seeing none? Hearing none from Councilor Bogart. I have to remember he's online.
Yep, no issues.
Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by having a roll call. Pump the brakes.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yeah.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Bogart,
Yes,
Counselor Phelps.
yes,
We get one vote, Council Bogart. Appreciate the enthusiasm. That's 5 votes in the affirmative and that motion passes. Thank you. Item number 9 is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. If anyone's here this evening and would like to speak to the council, city manager, myself, about anything that is not on the agenda, now would be the appropriate time. Okay, we'll move right along then. Moving along to public hearings. Agenda item number 13A, public hearing for resolution 2023-17, request to submit a grant application on behalf of Lakes Region Community Developers relating to the demolition of a dilapidated building at 1719 Bay Street. Notice the public hearing is made available in the July 26, 2023 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the FAU. Action on this item may be taken up under unfinished business later on this evening. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:21 p.m. If anyone from the public would like to speak to this matter, now would be the appropriate time. Welcome.
I'm Tammy Griffin. I live at 18 Bay Street, which is across from the firehouse. What I don't understand is this is a private property, right, that burnt. So the funding should come from the owner of the property, right, to clean up the mess. Why are we doing money to clean up the mess when somebody just got paid or is going to get paid for the building? It's your responsibility to clean it up, right?
I asking you the question.
Yeah.
That is something I can't speak to, but I think it's fair that you raised the point. This is an opportunity for the public to weigh in on this.
I mean, this building has been burnt now for, this is at least a year and a half now. You know, it'd have been nice to take it down a month after it burned. You know, the owner is responsible. If I have my property burned, am I responsible to take it down and clean it up? Yes. If I'm gonna sell the property and I'm gonna make 200,000 and I gotta spend 50 to clean it up or give them a break off the price. That's good, but it shouldn't be up to, you know, grants and everything else to clean it up. They're trying to do parking. We're gonna do maybe a variance and some craziness.
So we're just talking about the grant that's.
Well, I know, but and then, you know, waiving fees, you know, impact fees for this. Trying to do this.
I appreciate the fact that you want to speak to this. That's not relevant to what we're talking about right now. This is just the acceptance of a grant that we're taking into consideration. So anything else is zoning board and planning board.
But, yeah, I know, I'm just, a lot of, you know, this and this and this, to get something that we don't even want. You know, and.
Do I understand you don't want the burnt out building to come down?
I want that cleaned up a
You do,
year and a
okay.
half ago, but, you know. For this project, no, it can stay there, it's been a year and a half, you can get it for another year and a half.
Thanks very much for taking the time to speak. Anyone else like to speak to this matter this evening? Seeing none, I'd like to close the public hearing on this matter at 7:23 p.m. As I said earlier, we may take this up under unfinished business later on this evening. Moving on to agenda item number 13B. Public hearing for resolution 2023-18 relating to the acceptance of a grant from the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority for improvements to Levitt Park and the Levitt Park Park House, excuse me. Notice that this public hearing has been available in the July 26, 2023 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun. Posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. Action on this item, like the previous one, may be taken up under unfinished business this evening. I'd like to open the public hearing on this matter at 7:24 p.m. If anyone here would like to speak to this, that would be the appropriate time. Seeing no one stepping forward to comment on this matter, I'd like to close the public hearing at 7:25 p.m. Moving on to agenda item number 14A, Daisy Pierce, Executive Director of Navigating Recovery of the Lakes Region, is going to brief us on the Mayor's Housing Task Force. Officer Eric Adams will be joining her.
Don't be shy.
I will say before we start right here, along with Tammy Carmichael from the Partnership of Public Health, Eric Adams, Stacey Pierce, part of the, and myself, part of the steering committee on the mayor's task force on housing stability. At the impetus for this, I think, as all of us know, certainly post-COVID has been the significant increase of people experiencing homelessness here in the city of Laconia. It's an issue that we've talked a fair amount here, whether it be Spruce Street or whether it be some of the other encampments, and how is the city taking into consideration the challenges before us and better defining these challenges, as well as hopefully coalescing around some solutions to make some inroads in regards to housing. I think what we've learned in this, I don't want to steal your thunder, but there's a complexity to this issue. It defies simple singular solutions, and I just want to say thank you to the steering committee as well as everyone who's participated in this housing task force. I also want to say that thank you to we're very fortunate to have not only Daisy Pierce at Navigating, but certainly Eric Adams, who first sat down with me some time ago and said we really need to do something about this, and wouldn't let me out of the interrogation room until I agreed to that. Actually, we're having lunch at anyway, thank you for being here, and thanks for your presentation.
Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay, so just want to make sure before I start referencing it. So as the mayor said, I'm Daisy Pierce, the Executive Director of Navigating Recovery of the Lakes Region. We are the recovery community organization over on 4th Street.
And I'm Detective Eric Adams with the Laconia Police Department. Yes, so I'm gonna actually kick it off. So I just want to go over, first I want to thank City Council for allowing us and the mayor to allow us to come and just have a quick presentation. Just to give you guys an update as to what's been going on, and just some brief information and some educational components that we threw in. So the who, what, when, and where, right? We started with 6 forums. They were held. All of you were aware of the forums that we held in each ward. And then we also did one virtually. So total, we had 91 people that showed up. We had 51 people that attended in the business forum, which was one that we held at the Belknap Mill. It was very well attended. We also had 58 people attend a forum that was held at the Isaiah's Cafe for those that were experiencing homelessness. So a little bit of the educational component to what we were presenting. So there's been a lot of studies out there in reference to homelessness. And so one of the things that we wanted to do with each one of these forums was to really give a small and brief, but yet impactful educational component to each one of the forums. So during this, what we did was Daisy produced a video where we talked about this information. I'm going to share with you real quickly. So 3% of people experiencing homelessness as a result of substance use disorder. So it's a very small percentage, right? 43% of homeless population misuse alcohol and other drugs, right? But, and this is where people don't really understand this, and I thought it was important that we put this in. So 66% of people that experience homelessness, they develop a substance use disorder after becoming homeless, okay? Not before. And there's that misconception that it's before, right? And people lose their housing because of the drugs and alcohol. But it's not, it's actually the reverse. And there's a lot of reasons why. So as part of this, I want to show, now this talks a little bit about just the quick snapshots of our housing, right? So some of the issues that we have, right, 70.7% vacancy rate in Belknap County. And then our widespread eviction rates, inadequate service and infrastructure. So just think about it, right? $51,000 a year. That's $24.52 an hour. That's what you would need to make bare minimum to just survive in an apartment right now. And go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna add that, so, a healthy market rate or vacancy rate is 5%. And with 3% being, accounting for turnover, so the amount of time it takes for an apartment or unit to get cleaned and for the next family to move in. So New Hampshire hasn't had a healthy vacancy rate of 5% in 15 years. So housing is, the shortage of housing has been a huge part of our unsheltered population issue being increased. And the $51,000 a year, $24.52 an hour is to afford a 2-bedroom at market rent.
Did we have any questions on that?
This is the source on this information.
New Hampshire Housing Authority does report a snapshot every year on our.
Thank you.
That's what I-
Yeah, so we can provide all of that information as well, if it's not already on.
everything is there.
Okay. Just so you guys have a little bit of an understanding.
So the highlights I'm about to go through are a snapshot of this document here. So this report is what was produced as a result of the community forums that we held. So we partnered with Partnership for Public Health and JSI, and they facilitated the forums, collected all the data, and put it into this report format for us. So you all have your own copy to take with you. The top page is our 1-pager, our flyer, some of the best information condensed, but it is pretty thick. So I hope that you will find the time at some point to read through this. And certainly the mayor has our contact information, and we're pretty easy to find if you've got questions about this after you've had a chance to read through it. Yeah. Go ahead. So one of the highlights is that 85% of people who attended our forums believe that addressing this issue is a major concern, and 13% consider it to be a moderate concern. So that means that this is an issue that the city no longer affords to ignore. It's something that the citizens have spoken, we need to start doing something about this. Some of the solutions offered included increased affordable housing, safe camping sites were a suggestion, or something like a tiny home village or a pallet shelter. Pallet shelters are individual units that are designed out of almost like cargo type material pretty quickly. They are good for winter and summer. You can basically clean them out, hose them out, and get the next person in pretty quickly. They lock for each individual. They can come in sets of 2 beds for individuals or a couple, or 4 beds for a family. So that's what a pallet shelter is when we refer to it later in the presentation. Other suggestions involve first responders and harm reduction approaches, education related solutions, education both for the community at large, so people understand kind of some of the statistics we shared with you, but also opportunities for individuals who are unsheltered to get training and skills, so that way they have better opportunities for employment. And also social service provider solutions, so mental health, substance use, and wraparound services like community action program provides. So at the forums, everyone spoke up about how this is a complex situation. There's no single solution. We don't have that one size fits all to this. And like Laconia has always done, we want to do this from a grassroots perspective. We want to do something that is for our community, designed by our people, and that serves our needs. So the community right now is definitely very motivated to address this issue. So the Mayor's Housing Task Force, this was formed back in 2019, right prior to COVID. We kind of had to click the pause button when other issues became at large. Over the pandemic, what happened was our population went from about 80 to 100 up to 300 to 400 of our residents are now in shelter. So when we decided to take this task force up again in the summer of 2022, yes, it's just last summer, wow, okay. It feels like it's been longer than that we've been working on this. We decided to do these forums and then to form the task force. So our task force right now is there's a steering committee led by the mayor, Eric, myself, and Tammy Carmichael from Partnership for Public Health. And then we have 20 individuals on the task force that represent our local businesses, our faith-based organizations, social service organizations, housing agencies, Laconia leadership, and Belknap County leadership as well. We also have someone on our task force with lived experience. We think that voice is very important to have at the table, and we have first responders there as well. So we've been meeting monthly. We meet once a month, and we talk about a strategic plan. That is our end goal. Is a living, breathing document that the city can use that will spell out all of our steps and actions that we need to take in order to address this issue. We don't expect to necessarily hit zero, but we want to reduce what we've got right now. Within the task force, we also have 4 work groups that meet alternating from when the larger task force meets. So we have our communication and education work group. This group focuses on, as I said before, education, both at large for the community and how we're going to educate our unsheltered population. And communication, what's the messaging we want to get out? What are the lived story experiences we want to share? And how can we make sure that the community is aware of what we're doing? Our housing and land use work group. This group is focusing on different properties in the city that could maybe be used for alternative purposes than they are now, and how we can increase our housing in the area. Our first responders and harm reduction task force has both the fire chief on it and Eric, as well as myself and someone from the hospital. We talk a lot about what is being done from a law enforcement perspective, a first responder perspective, and what we can do to keep people safe and prevent them from being in worse situations. And then our 4th work group is the Pallet Village Community Work Group. This work group is focusing on the possibility of getting a pallet village. There's one in Burlington and one in Boston. So we're hoping to take a field trip to go see what that looks like. Both places have spoken very highly of the way the pallet village has improved their situation. And so this is something that we're hoping to be one of our first steps towards addressing the situation. Any questions about that?
Burlington, Vermont.
Burlington, Vermont, yes. So what exactly is this task force strategic plan going to address? So we are trying to look at the entire housing continuum. And when I say that, we're talking about everyone who's already homeless and unsheltered, all the way up to someone who's already in stable, safe, permanent housing. That's our housing continuum. And our strategic plan has to address every point along that continuum. We want to do just as good of a job of getting people housed as we do keeping people housed. So it's both ends of that spectrum. So this is kind of a map of where we're going with what the strategic plan has to address. So it's going to be robust. It's not just one thing that we're focusing on, but it's preventative and it's solution-based. So we are not planning to reinvent the wheel. That other communities have unsheltered populations and have, different approaches to addressing this issue. One example that has come to our attention is the city of Houston. Houston has a lot of good data. They're a much larger city than we are. And so hopefully some of the things that work for them, we can downsize and work for us. But as I said before, this is going to be Laconia specific. We are going to make sure that this works for our community. So Houston has housed more than 28,000 people since 2012, resulting in more than a 60% decrease in their unsheltered population. They have a collaborative system designed around a standardized set of goals, aka our strategic plan, rather than individual organizations and government entities working separately. So what we're really trying to avoid here is us working in one silo, the city of Laconia working in another, law enforcement in a third, and none of us communicating about what we're doing to help this population. Instead, we're all at the table together and we're all gonna follow the same strategic plan. Houston reports that the cost to house someone is around $20,000 a year versus the national estimate, which is 30 to 50,000 per year to incarcerate someone or to leave them on the streets where they are constantly needing first responders and utilizing our emergency rooms. So all of this is to say that what we're here tonight is to ask for your support as we develop the strategic plan. We very much see the city playing a major role in this, and not just as individual organizations. And so we hope that you will be supportive of everything we do moving forward to develop this and to roll out the strategic plan as well.
Just a quick couple of things. So just think locally, right? As far as law enforcement, when we talk about the cost, right, for first responders, whether it be the fire department, the emergency room, law enforcement, when we went from a population of unsheltered for 80 to 100 average to up to 300 to 400. So if just take that number, right, and just think about all of the costs associated with responding to dealing with them, whether it be suspicious person, suspicious activity, overdoses, or just complaints, normal everyday run-of-the-mill complaints. Someone on the sidewalk, someone in the parks acting up, all of it, right? So we have to think about as we move forward. We will want the city to be a part of this solution as a whole, right? Because we know that we can't just do it just with the community resources. We need everybody all together, right? All on the same page, which is why we take this first step to come here, talk with you, just to have your ear for a few minutes so you guys can stay up to date with what we're doing. And moving forward, we're going to be very transparent with all of you to know that, hey, this is where we're at with the task force, right? When we talk about this talent community, it's an idea. It's going to be researched, right? We aren't going to reinvent the wheel with what we're doing, right? I know that Laconia has been very unique and we have created a lot of wheels here, right? But the reality is with something like this, there are models that work. Zeroing out homelessness, it's really not possible. So when you hear about communities that have zeroed out their population on unsheltered, there's certain specifics that go with that. So it doesn't mean that when you drive into that city, you're not going to see a single homeless person, right? It means that there are categories and there are strategic plans that are put in place to help lower what the population is of unsheltered. So just moving forward, I just want you guys to be aware of what we're doing. And we're really taking a robust look at this.
Eric, thank you very much, Eric. Just for a second here, it got me thinking about and where I first met you many years ago in regards to the opioid crisis throughout the state and certainly throughout the community. The idea that it's very difficult, if not impossible, to arrest ourselves out of an opioid epidemic, and that we could quickly fill up every jail with people using opioids or abusing opioids, excuse me. But it really didn't address the root of the problem, and it's still enormously challenging now. But I think that, from my perspective, one thing that we found is that if we get a multi-pronged approach to addressing not only the root problem, but also that person who needs immediate care with Narcan, across that whole spectrum,
right?
We can make some inroads in a time.
And that's the thing, Mayor. Like, there's only a very small percentage of people in our community that are struggling with substance use. Like, what we don't always see is the family living out of their vehicle in the parking lot, right? Struggling because they can't make ends meet. And it's not because they're bad people or they're they're criminals or anything like, it's literally, they fell on hard times. So part of the strategic plan is to help work on prevention efforts and reaching out to those families to get them before they fall on those extremely hard times.
Eric, could you also address, one of the concerns that we often hear in the community is that, this idea of, people being shuttled or dropped off to our community because this is where the resources are at communities. Can you put a little light on that and maybe some of the work that you've done?
Yeah, so I had some officers that reached out to me as well as some community folks. Saying that some of the shuttle buses like the CAT and the other transit buses were driving down to Concord or Manchester, picking up people, bringing them to our city and dropping them off. So I did some research, reached out to the companies themselves. That's not the case. Isaiah's, what happens is in a lot of these were being seen at Isaiah's. I had multiple people take pictures of small buses at Isaiah's. Isaiah's Cafe is set up with the other community partners, doctor's appointments. And it's more feasible to try and get several people onto a bus at once instead of transporting one at a time. So that's what you were seeing. That's what the community was seeing, is that they were seeing that individuals climbing on the bus, going down to their doctor's appointments, and then getting dropped back off because they're from Laconia. So I was able to squash that. There were some incidents where other law enforcement agencies were dropping individuals off. Those have been identified and handled in in a manner that we spoke with those PDs. And it's one of the things that we want to make sure that yes, as we build more community resources and whatnot, people are going to come here for services, but it doesn't mean they're staying here. You gotta remember, like Lakes Region Mental Health, they have a huge catchment area, right? So people do come here for their services. Navigating Recovery has a fairly large catchment area. So they're coming here, they're utilizing the services, and then they're going back to their hometowns. So one of the things that I worked on and I'm continuing to work on is identifying where individuals, when an officer comes in contact with someone, or finding out where they're from, how they got here, how long they've been here, and things like that, just so we can find out a little bit backstory, right? Why are they here, right? If we're catching them, Rotary Park or whatever on the overnights. So we are constantly trying to do things to figure out how we can work together with other communities. But the reality is, when you see things like that, the bus dropping people off and whatnot, it's not in the sense that they're just picking them up down in Manchester or Concord or another community and just bringing them up and dumping them on Main Street. That's not what this is. It's they're getting picked up here, they're going for doctor's appointments, right? So that we can work on harm reduction, we can work on to keep them out of the emergency room, right? And then keep them working towards bettering their health.
Eric, can you also just briefly address, how have things changed since Spruce Street was when that issue was addressed and people were moved on from the public?
So obviously we've had, an influx of people now downtown a little bit more. We've had, small campsites popping up here and there. There have been several that have gone back to communities that they came from. And so for us, we haven't had to go up there and deal with situations in that sense. But some of them are seeking better services, like more services that they were reluctant to seek before. Some are, really actively trying to engage with community partners and community resources to get themselves out of the situations that they're in. But not all, right? We still are going to have individuals that feel like they want to live right on the streets. They're not causing problems. They're literally just wanting to live on the streets. Now, being homeless, it's not against the law. So we have to figure out how, as a community, right, do we interact with them? I can tell you that I know several of them that don't want to be housed. They like living on the street. They're not bad people. They just enjoy living that life. And so we don't have a lot of issues with them. Hardly at all. And it's just, there's a few select that struggle with severe mental health. And we're trying to figure out ways that we can, as a community, get them the assistance that they need to better their lives. But it takes time, but I will say we are working on many different solutions. And this housing is going to be one of them. Just trying to figure out how we as a community can get support from, like Lakes Region Community Developers, Lakes Region Mental Health. All the ones that are good landlords and actually do the right thing. They better our properties and they help, they get case management. That's the biggest thing, right? You take someone that's unhoused and has been unhoused for a while, you put them into a house or an apartment with no support. They don't know any different. They need to learn skills again. It's complex, but that's where case management comes in. And they succeed that way. I've seen it. And I wouldn't be standing in front of you if it wasn't possible or it wasn't true. So we're working on it.
Any questions from councilors? Seeing none, thank you very much for your work on this. Eric and I also happen to sit on the statewide housing stability.
Council on Housing Stability.
Housing stability, which we work on this on a monthly basis as well. And Kirk and I have been attending a number of meetings with mayors from across the state and meet with commissioners on a regular basis, trying to figure out what type of state resources are available and how do we access them. This is something that I feel very strongly about. We can't always look to the police department to solve this problem. We can't always look to we can't just dump it all in the police department or on the fire department or on our nonprofit sector or on the city welfare department. It's a combination, it's a group effort here of all of those groups, but it's also critically important to engage our private sector and that they have a role to play in this as well. We've all got skin in the game because this is all of our home community. Whether we live and work here, or just live here, or just work here. I think that's sort of challenging right now to see that the private sector has a vested interest in the success of some of these plans and somehow moving people who are at the extreme end of experiencing homelessness and living essentially on the ground, moving them along a continuum and getting them to some form of stable housing, whatever that looks like. They may never own the ranch house and the white picket fence, but they may have something that is entirely stable and sustainable and long-term viable, allows them to have a fulfilling life and to become contributing members of our community in a more traditional sense. And I think that's really the goal here. We're pretty good at getting someone shelter in extreme conditions, pretty good. But that only solves it for that night. And I think we can all feel good that if they went to Isaiah or they went to our cold weather shelter, the Doobie Center, the Doobie Building, those people didn't die that night in an extreme weather condition. I think that's great, but how do we continue them along the continuum to something that is more viable, for them and for the community. And and I'm also a believer in that if we figure out how to make good evidence-based investments farther upstream, if you will, we save money ultimately. I think you touched on it a little bit, you know, if someone practices good preventive health care, probably don't end up in the emergency department very often. If someone takes good care of their car, probably don't have a catastrophic breakdown on the side of the road. I mean, I think this is very similar. How do we get people in a place where they have access to mental health services, to addiction recovery services, a roof over their head, and then let them move along to better health and more sustainable future. So we will continue to work on this going forward and hopefully bring back some more ideas, but I wanted to make sure you got an update from the people leading this charge, the two presented this evening, let you know what we're working on, how we've been working on it. I will say, to be a little bit of a downer here, to make real inroads on this, I think the city is going to have to, at some point, make a decision what level of investment, financial investment they're going to make trying to address this problem. And it's a tough question. Not an easy one to answer. But I think if we're not going to be able to make true inroads on this housing situation, this lack of housing, without committing some resources at some point, whether it's in our tenure sitting up here or whether it's another tenure. It's somebody else's tenure, but it's out there.
Well, and to that matter, I think that it's important for you guys to understand that when we talk about a strategic plan, that's not a no cost plan, but the strategic plans and the two companies that we are looking at to help us write this, the estimates we've received are between $20,000 and $30,000. And that's to write, like, as I said, a living, breathing document that spells out all of our goals for us to address the situation. So that's the first drop in the bucket.
Right, and we've also already had Partnership for Public Health, who's paid for JSI to help us create this report.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've got some buckets to look at to try and get a plan together, but ultimately it would be a plan that is a high quality, robust document that we can refer to and maybe lay out a plan for short term, mid-range and long-term goals.
And I welcome any city council to.
Council Chief, go ahead, say that you hand
Mr.
up.
Mayor, I think you struck, at least for me, the one chord that I worry about, and that is you talk about our investment. Every one of us here thinks about return on investment, as does every citizen in the city of Laconia. And I'm prepared to make a commitment to help move this process forward. On the other end of it, I need to see that there's going to be a return on investment. The return may well be that people are just stable. But with all due respect, I've dealt with some of these problems myself over a number of years, and they didn't always turn out nicely because despite the investment we made, they just kept going the way they were going. If you folks, if we can come up with something that has a proven track record of improving a lot of these folks, I'm in up to here. But I can't just say, let's go buy some housing and see what happens.
I couldn't agree with you more. This is evidence-based stuff, and I think that the presenters indicated tonight, we're not out to reinvent the wheel. Some places have done this well. Some places have had hiccups. Let's learn from mistakes. Let's capitalize on other people's successes and see if it works for us. I think one thing Eric and I first got together many years ago and started navigating the recovery of the Lakes region. I think I had this great idea that there was a one size fits all in the community to address issues of opioid addiction across the country. I think what I learned from people who were in recovery was that one size doesn't fit all. What works in Manchester may not work in Berlin. It may not work in Laconia. So let's learn from these places that have done it well, but have the flexibility to address some of our unique concerns in this city. And that was sort of seared in my brain. I was so naive to think I could. I was just naive, but they taught me as the Derek that. There's unique aspects of our community, but I think we also want to see. What is the return on investment, right? I mean. And there are a lot of ways to gauge that, right? Whether it's reduced number of calls to our PD and our fire department, whether it's a reduced dependence on our welfare department, whether it's fewer people actually living on the street. Whether it's, students in our school system who have been couch surfing or living in cars with their guardians. They're no longer there, they're in some form of stable housing. But we can't just put money in a black hole and think that it's gonna work out well. So we've tried to have that in mind and not just be fly by the seat of our pants, so to speak. Councilor Susie.
My only request is that as we move forward with this, remember, we keep talking about not just Laconia, but the least region. We involve the other cities, towns, and counties out of this investment, you might say.
Yes.
As the city of Laconia, not taxpayers, can't complete the whole burden, because as we build this, more will come. I mean, that's nature.
And that's why it was important to us to have Belknap County Commissioners on the task force.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a county-wide problem.
Right.
It most certainly is, and we know
Problem.
it's a statewide problem. We also know the cities, when we meet with mayors around the state, the cities are carrying the cost of this because people come from the surrounding communities, the hinterlands, and they come in because we have a hospital. Maybe the jail is here, so when people upon release don't necessarily leave the community. I mean, there are a number of reasons why people may stay here, and the nonprofits as well. So that's.
Mr. Mayor, this is not a new problem. In the 70s and 80s, when I was PD, I had to assign a sergeant to meet every bus that came into town because the Manchester Police Department gave people a bus ticket to get here. Getting bus tickets at home, but my only point is, this is not new. This is, so we gotta find something different. But return on investment, that's the only key to me, is that we can identify a return.
Thank you, Council Chief. Thanks, Council. Maybe Council Felch.
Yeah, and with that said, I totally agree. But I think with the different resources we have these days, the mentoring that you're gonna have for some of these people, the mental illness and helping those. And the biggest thing, as you said, the biggest way to keep down the homelessness is to keep them from becoming homeless. And I just want to thank you guys for everything you're doing. I went to the meeting, I thought it was awesome, I learned a lot myself. I will be in Burlington, Vermont in September, and I will be checking that out, so thank you.
Great. Thanks. Thanks very much.
Yep.
Nice to see you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along on the agenda this evening, the mayor's report is next. I'm going to forego my mayor's report in light of the agenda we have this evening and move on to council comments.
Why is everybody looking at me?
I'm just hoping your comments are one page. That's all. No, go right ahead. Go right
Thank
ahead.
you. And it's not lost on me that I asked you for personal reasons, but then I want to discuss a few. Anyways, number one on my list is, I wonder if at some point in the not too distant future, we could have some discussion or response from administration with regards to public funds. We talked about both funds. If they look at one of the two locations, I was hoping they could bring us up to date on what we've been trying to do. We've been talking about private streets or unaccepted streets. At some point, we did discuss this 1968 law that said if you've been maintaining a road for 20 years or 1968, it is a public road. I'd like to know, I know we had a brief discussion and I had a brief discussion with the council and the manager at one point, and it was sort of We don't think that's. The lawyer was not sure that was the best way to go. I'd like to hear more about it because I think it would help deal with some of the things we heard at our last meeting. If we didn't have to go through the process of laying out the load and all that other stuff, just accept it as it is, because the law allows us to do it. I would appreciate some report on that law and whether or not we can make it work for us. I'd like to also hear about what we're doing about Eastern Shore Road. I know we've made some efforts there and on Lake Nav. We hope that at the next meeting, perhaps we hear what's been going on there. I wanted to report to the council that at the last Black Weirs Action Committee meeting I attended, they reported that they took in $41,000 parking, city's parking lot of Weirs, and that their total balance is $105,000.
So can you refresh my recollection, the first, how much goes directly to Weirs Action Committee out of that?
It's 25%.
20.
This is over the bike week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They manage that all to themselves.
Nothing comes to the city general.
That's
fund out of
correct. We
that
shut
at all?
down the kiosks and
What's that?
All of it.
They get
All of it goes to the.
just.
No, it's great.
But they put it back into the city, so
Yeah.
it's great.
You got one other thing. I don't remember. Oh, yeah, is it Phil Croft that's in the years, yes. We all got another letter with regards to, maybe some of this kind of letter. First of all, this one's addressed to me. I'm gonna do this to the manager and ask him to review it, if it's all right with the mayor. And maybe get back to me when he has a chance. And that's it.
Thank you, Council Cheney. City Manager, do you have all the information you need from Council Cheney to follow up on those items?
Yes, I do.
Any other council comments? Councilor Haynes?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I had the opportunity prior to the meeting to come to talk with Councilor Cheney. There are a number of, not Cheney, with Councilor Susie. There's a number, well, Councilor Cheney's on that board, on that committee too, subcommittee, that there are a number of items that have been referred to the ordinance committee. And he assures me that they're on the agenda in the future, so I'm satisfied with that. And just to give you an example, it was a hazardous buildings, there was fireworks, there was all kinds of other things. So Councilor Susie has assured me that they're on the agenda for the next couple of months, so that's well taken care of.
Thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. Any committee reports or liaison reports right now?
Gave you what I have.
Committee reports, liaison reports, seeing none.
This one, quickly, and the Heritage Commission did approve the demolition of Peter Burnett's property. I believe it's on Park Street. In Lakeport, so that's that was purchased as part of the Everett property. So that was,
It's kind of sad.
yes.
There it is. I thought it was historic. I really.
Peter's historic.
Councilor Cheney,
Say hysteric.
Councilor Cheney, the Heritage Commission did look at that, and there was a couple of items, but you know, the question with historical items is if you save them, where do you store them?
Yeah, the only concern I have is that church next door. I hope we pay attention to that. I talked to an old timer a couple of years ago, who talked to me about going to work with Scott Williams on that plot. And he said all of us did, because none of us could afford a watch back in those days. So we relied on that. Yep, I hope we can save it.
Moving on, Yep, moving on to agenda item number 19, citizens request to comment on current agenda items. If there's an agenda item that you'd like to speak to, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing none, okay. Move along to the city manager's report. I ask you to take over there, Kirk. And Mark, I'm going to step out for just a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your packet, you'll see the financial operational trends report. You'll note that our building construction is, we started out a little bit slow, but we're right on pace where we were last year. We know last year turned out to be a great year for building construction, of over $50 billion. So we're definitely heading in a good direction as of right now. The fire department numbers are there. Busy month for them. Public assistance data, as we've been seeing these $3,000 to $4,000 monthly welfare numbers, and we're right in that 4,000 this year. Police activity on the second page, steady but busy. You can see each month we're noticing that the percentage up each month is usually high single digit, low double digit numbers, so they're continuing to stay busy through the summer. Property tax collection, motor vehicle registration are all on track where they should be. Overtime numbers are as we would expect, but as we would expect what we're seeing with full staffing. You know, you notice that the trends go down in the amount of money spent, especially in our police and fire, and with our public works departments when we're seeing staffing going up. So that's trending as would be expected. Park facility uses, summertime, a little bit lower this summer. Impact fees unchanged. I said this a couple of times, I think 2 months ago, I'll say it again. As we look at department requests for funding of any projects, we are early on looking at impact fees, so we're making sure that, you know, it's a place that they're not just sticking into as a piggy bank, that we're actually going and using those numbers and using that money as needed. And we've done that a few times in the last couple of months, and we continue to do that. Our trust balances haven't really changed. We'll be seeing those updated over the next couple of months. Building permits, you can see increases this year in building permits, in code inspection, and property maintenance actions. One of the things that the council requested was that we start to see a little bit more of a proactive approach to some of our property maintenance issues that Council Haynes has brought up multiple times. And it was reinforced through the planning department, and we're starting to see a little bit more proactive response to some of these. We're starting to move a little bit quicker. We've also had long discussions about how to move through the process faster and more efficiently to get through if we have to go through court system. And we've been able to do that. We've had great work with our legal counsel on taking it out of their hands and allowing our department members within planning and code to do the work on their own a little bit faster and start to move it more efficiently. And we're already seeing success in that. General fund expenditures are where we would expect them to be at this point. Obviously, the revenue doesn't include the property tax, so that's why those numbers look a little bit skewed, but they're where they should be. And we're seeing another busy year with the ambulance, but they're doing a nice job with the collection company trying to collect. So obviously, we're in a position to see yearly numbers or not where they are going to end up, because it's only a year into it. We know collecting medical bills can take quite a long time. So, but everything seems to be going along at a good pace there. Other than that, that's all I have for my report, unless you have any questions.
We should be seeing that ambulance report, EMS billing report, that should reflect an increase in Medicaid reimbursement rates.
We should, yeah.
And that's starting, that would have started July 1st of this year.
Yeah, so we're very early into it, so we won't be seeing anything strong right now, but over the course of the next year, and actually this fiscal year coming up in the next fiscal year with the increases, we should see some increase, and it's a measurable increase.
Thank you. Any questions? Go right ahead, Council Coach.
I just want to ask about Elm Street again, when it will be done.
So we have updated information from Public Works. We're looking at the 22nd through 24th to
finish that up with the paving. Thank you. I'm gonna push that aside now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kurt, the next time you're talking, and I guess this would involve Councilor Cheney too. I noticed the motor vehicle stops are down. And I noticed they were down in June too, and I understand. Motor vehicle stops in June will probably be the resources were more towards motorcycle week, but I've fielded a number of complaints in the south end. And I think the council is aware of one of them was Academy Street, and that's not the only place. Oh, I don't feel that our bad actors have become law-abiding citizens all of a sudden. I wish they were, but our neighborhoods would like to see some control, some visibility in the neighborhoods, and just not, you know, on Court Street, on Elm Street, on you really would, because there's some bad actors. You know, stop signs that's on Academy Street alone. As soon as it's dark, it's just like Interstate 93. And stop signs are out of the question and all work. So, you know, if we could, neighborhoods would like to see some patrol activity.
Yeah, I'll certainly talk to Chief Canfield about that. I know.
If I may, Mr. Mayor. I led the charge to get 2 additional police officers to do traffic work. So I'm just well aware, okay, that issue is important to all, everyone. Maybe not to Tony, I think he's so far off this stairs. But seriously, I have talked to the chief recently about Academy, and there was one other. Besides that, but anyways.
Well, I've heard from, you know, people on Garfield Street, people on Grant Street.
And I had that conversation.
Okay.
That there are these concerns, and that there are concerns at this table that we start to see more. And I am going to assure you, you will see an improvement. I've spoken to the chief, he assures me there'll be an improvement and less.
You know, and everyone understands you can't be everywhere at once.
Yeah, and you know what, the conversation I had with the chief back a while ago was, I'm not as fancy about how many tickets you give out. I don't really care at all about tickets. But car stops, so people see when you run that stop sign, when you speed down that street, you're gonna get stopped. And you get chewed out for it, or maybe a ticket, but the tickets aren't the important thing. The important thing is how the blue lights come. So,
And with that said, the problem we're having in Lakeport with people turning right on red when the walk sign is on, I don't know when we're gonna discuss this.
It's on tonight's agenda.
thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Moving right along now to item number 21. Under 21A. There's a proposal to change the city's solid waste ordinances to reduce customers leaving the transfer station without paying. Kirk, would you lead us through that just a bit?
I will, and we have Director Anderson with us tonight. He's been reporting to us that he's seen a increase in the amount of drive-offs at the transfer station. So people drive in, they get weighed, they go dump their trash, they come back through to get weighed to go out. They're not coming back through to get weighed to go out. They were going from about 1 a quarter to 1 or 2 a month now, which over time certainly add up. Director Anderson worked with our legal counsel to come up with I won't even call it a draft ordinance, but language that could be put into our ordinance, in our solid waste ordinance, to fine people for drive-offs.
What do we do currently right now when someone drives off?
They notify the police department, and if they don't find anything from there, there's no fining system for it. So we don't do a lot about it right now.
So you notify the police department when someone drove off, but when the police department follows up on it, there may be nothing they can do.
Sometimes they go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in fairness, if he's weighing people and dealing with people at the window, he may not realize somebody's driving on.
Right.
So the problem needs more looking at.
Is there a video system in use?
Video, maybe, the solution.
No.
Or
No?
someone now.
So what this is, there's no real motion for you tonight. What this is Director Anderson is looking for guidance on how we'd like to proceed to get this back to you. You want to see the ordinance updated to see what it would look like. There is some language in here what the fines would look like, a fining system. And see how you guys want to proceed with this.
Counselor Susie.
Yeah, I look at this, we have two. I look at it, we have two, and it's. I see $1,000 fine or $500 fine or whatever it is. Then when you're looking at it from hoping to catch the plate number, then going back and finding the owner. I'm concerned about whether a lot of these are out of state, not local. Can we get the plate number and do that? And I'm gonna help ask my counselor, my right here, Counselor Cheney. Do we look at reciprocity here with the other states? And then secondly, can we do something more than just a fine? Can you look at?
This isn't a federal offense, Counselor.
Oh, I understand. I don't know that you don't pay your parking tickets, right? Well, then we don't pay your parking tickets.
I don't know. Stop looking at me.
Number one, I think more police officers working to beat downtown history tickets, but regardless of that,
I'm not, personally, I'm not sure that out-of-staters are a significant problem. I'm just upset. I didn't know you could get away with it, right?
Well, I think, this is what I think what happens when you have an outstanding parking ticket, as I understand it, when you go to register your vehicle, you have to pay for it then.
that's
So,
right.
I mean, I think that setting up a system where that would be, someone had to get a pass, at least, maybe it's only a day pass, which doesn't solve all, but if they have the resident pass, then before they renew that resident pass, they're gonna have to pay the fine, plus the New Year's pass might be something you look at.
And numbered passes, I don't believe they are now, are they? Are they? Getting the number off the ticket or the sticker. Knowing they went across, they gotta go, I don't gotta, but they almost always go across the scales.
Right.
To dump stuff. If the person at the window sees, yes, they went across the scales, but they never came back by sticker number, I think we can.
Oh, sorry.
Do we ID the people when they come in?
Yes.
So why can't we just keep their ID until they?
Oh, no, by plate. Yeah, not by person, but by plate.
Or do something?
Yeah, I think
Try to
that,
have an ID to tell them.
No, I don't know if that's that would slow up the process, but I think the process needs to be one, I think we should consider, if you're asking for those directions, something I would think about is a video system.
Yes.
Okay, so you can reconcile that. Second of all, when somebody pulls in, I don't know if the person at the gate actually looks at the number that's on my sticker to know that number 123 just drove by me after and weighed in. And then 123 is gonna correspond with me. So I think there should be a written policy that allows, that needs to be taken note of. And if there is a drive off because you know someone came in, you're gonna know if they didn't go out, or if they went out and didn't stop. So now you can't reconcile that, and I think a fine system is entirely appropriate. Because you know, I would say, first of all, maybe, I don't know what I wouldn't want to be so punitive that, but on the other hand, if people are doing this out of habit because they know they can get away with it, these fines would pay for the video system that we would put in there. It would only take a couple of fines to be paid for that, but anyway, might be my suggestion.
And there could be an escalator clause, Mr. Mayor, where first offense is fairly minimal.
Yeah, there is one here, but it's pretty significant.
I think there's two pieces of this. One is the identification of the vehicle, which I think we could easily do. They already do it there. So that piece of it's not too difficult. We have a video system that it bolsters it. The second piece, so that you obviously say, yes, make sure that we have a good system in place to identify. The second half of it is, if we're gonna put this together in an ordinance, which is relatively easy to do and the language is already there. Are you comfortable with us putting in an escalating finding system to bring forward to you to move on like this? If those two answers are yes, I don't need a vote, but consensus, we can easily put that together in one.
Come back for us for
a public hearing.
consideration.
Absolutely.
I would like to find a way, if we can legally, to either registration or renewing of the dump pass or whatever. You're on that list, you gotta pay this thing before you can get another one.
Or you get-
We're one step below a federal offense. Yeah, I agree, and I can support that. Council.
We can get all of that together.
I go across, you know, I mean,
I'm just mad, I didn't know you could get away with that.
Go ahead, Council.
My only question is, are these legitimate people that are just dropping off their recyclables and think that I don't have to go back on the scale because I'm not paying any fee? I mean, I know there's a sign that says you have to come back to the scale. If I'm
Yeah,
just dropping off my recyclables, I'm not gonna pay. Why do I need to go back on the scale? I'm just wondering if that's the,
You go
Well,
around.
it's not the recyclables, the ones who we come in and we have either construction, demolition,
Oh, okay.
household waste.
I was just trying to play the devil's advocate.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that I don't stop at like, probably take a look at the checkout line or the lineup line there and decide I'm not waiting on that line anymore. Actually, it moves really fast, quite frankly, so. But anyway, I think that, because if I hear the council correctly, I think that is the type of work we'd like to see you put in, put a fine in place, bring it back to us, see if there's a way to link it to either a renewal of registration on the vehicle that's linked to the sticker. Well, they certainly wouldn't be allowed if there was a fine outstanding, wouldn't be allowed to get another sticker until the fine was paid, but. You know, I think that only needs to happen a couple of times to people, and much like Councilor Chini's blue lights, it's a strong deterrent.
Yep, no, we can take care of
Okay, we could good to move on. Yep. Item number 21B. Resolution and a request to establish Laconia High School District LAHS Stadium Repair and Upgrade Reserve Account and appropriate $100,000 to the reserve account. I do see, this was submitted by Glenn Smith, but certainly Kurt, you can speak to it, and I do see the superintendent here as well. We'd like to have him address the matter.
that. If you want to have.
Sure.
Good evening, thank you for having me here tonight.
Good evening.
Great to see you all. The Bank of New Hampshire's turf, is under warranty and the warranty ends this year. And so the cost to replace that is going to cost between probably $300,000 and $500,000. And we are trying to be proactive. Right now, we don't need to do the repair, but we do know that the turf will need to be replaced. There could be other repairs we need to do, say, but the primary reason we're setting up the reserve account, depending on who that's going to.
Superintendent Tucker, the $100,000, and maybe Glenn can help with it, which account, and would it show up on financial and operational trends here? As to where the money is, the $100,000 coming from to go into this? No?
No, the financial and operational trends generally doesn't track school expenses.
Right, I'm just, well, our health insurance stabilization account, was that for the school or not originally?
There's two sets of reserve accounts.
Yeah.
One for the school, one for the city. What's
Got it.
on your monthly report are the city accounts.
Got it. So how much is in the reserve account right now?
Nothing right now, but we're looking pending approval of the account to put in $100,000 to work towards or to be ready to prepare the term.
So where's the $100,000? Like,
Part of the unspent revenues from last year.
okay, great. Thank you.
Please, can you tell me what the total amount is on spent revenues?
Total amount of unspent revenues, about $1 million.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any questions for superintendent on this? Thank you, Superintendent Tucker. So right now, we're looking, there's a series of 3 motions. First one is to move away the reading of resolution 2023-19 and read by title only, so made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Any further discussion on that matter? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilor Cheney?
Yes.
Councilor Susie?
Yes.
Councilor Haynes?
Yeah.
Councilor Bogart?
Yes.
Councilor Couch?
Yeah.
5-0, that motion passes. Second motion is to move a first reading of resolution 2023-19 relative to authorizing the city manager to establish a capital reserve account for the Laconia School District to be titled the Laconia School District LHS Stadium Repair and Upgrade Reserve Account. So made by Councilor Phelps, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this? Councilor Bogart, since you're not here, if you have a question, please speak up immediately, and because I can sometimes barrel along here and forget that you're not present.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, seeing no questions, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney.
Yes.
Counselor Susie.
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Bogart.
Yes,
Counselor Felch.
Yes. 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. And finally, looking to, for a motion to move to schedule a public hearing on August 28, 2023, during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney.
Yes.
Counselor Susie.
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Bogart.
yes,
Counselor Felch.
Yeah. 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes as well. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 21C, resolution 2023-20, request to authorize acceptance of ARPA funds from Belknap County in the amount of $25,000 to fund e-bikes for the Laconia Police Department's bicycle patrol unit. By acceptance of these funds, Laconia Police Department will be able to purchase 5 fully outfitted e-bikes to assist the bicycle unit in their patrols. The e-bikes will allow the bicycle unit members to decrease their response times to calls for service by allowing them to travel a significant distance quickly and not be fatigued upon arrival at the call. It will allow for them to be able to patrol a larger area and still be physically ready and able to respond to those calls. The cost of the 5 e-bikes is approximately $27,000. The police department will take $2,000 out of their operating budget to make up the shortfall. I will say in regards to this, I had an opportunity to ride the e-bikes with the chief some time ago. They are pretty nifty if you haven't been on them. And certainly, the idea that if someone were up to, were involved in any behavior that required the police to do something about it, some of these folks are actually on e-bikes themselves. So this just allows our police officers to keep up with those folks. So I think it's great that I appreciate the company allocating this fund. So right now I'll be looking for a motion, three motions. First one is to move to waive the reading of resolution 2023-20 in its entirety, read by title only, so made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, last clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney.
Yes.
Counselor Susie.
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Bogart.
yes,
Counselor Felch.
Yes. 5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Next, looking for a motion to move a first reading of resolution 2023-20 relative to the acceptance of ARPA funds from Belknap County in the amount of $25,000 to fund e-bikes for the Laconia Police Department bicycle patrol unit. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney.
Yes.
Counselor Susie.
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Bogart.
yes,
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, on this matter, I'm looking for a motion to move to schedule a public hearing on August 28, 2023, during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please take the roll.
Counselor Cheney.
Yes.
Counselor Susie.
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Bogart.
yes,
Counselor Felch.
5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Next, under agenda item 21B, ordinance 2023-59-12, amending chapter 59, Parks and Recreation Commission, adding a new section 59.12, Parks and Recreation Commission rules and regulations. Kirk, would you like to walk us through that?
Sure. We had, Director Levisa's been working with the Parks Commission on how are we able to enforce the rules in the parks, all parks, to make them cleaner, more organized, neat, and if needed to use work with the police department to enforce some of these rules. The issue is some of the things that we have for park rules are in there as just park rules. They're not enforceable by the police department. By putting stuff into the ordinance, they're able to be more enforceable. Director Levisick worked with the Parks Commission to come up with these. I think there's some more that they'd eventually like to see in there, but these in here, which are included, making sure if they're doing any damage, if they're hanging things all over the parks, and having excess bicycles and some other, personal belongings that are left in the park. Being able to enforce some of these rules and using the police to do it, we need to get into ordinance form. So what's included in your packet is a proposed ordinance. That we can send that to a public hearing for discussion.
Thank you. You have a question for the city manager?
No, I'd like to recommend we further this for the ordinance. And then.
There it is. So you, is there a second for that? Counselor Haynes, yes? Any further discussion? Ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Booker,
yes,
Counselor Crouch.
That motion passes, and that will be assigned to the appropriate committee. Thank you. Thank you. Is item 21E, I see nothing in our packet here.
Right.
in regards to this.
Yeah, do you want a quick update on it? There's nothing in your packet.
Does Steve Wynn want to put a casino in Laconia?
No, he doesn't, but it's becoming quite a constant phone call at the beginning. We got a few different businesses reach out. One of them, an established business in the city, looking to have a casino. I'm not gonna get into all the depths of the charitable organizations and all that. There's a lot of rules and regulations that go along with it, a lot of time, but what we'd have to do is make some, it's not technically zoned in anywhere in the city. That doesn't mean to say that we couldn't use other zoning language to fit this. Well, what I'd be looking for from you guys is to, first of all, I guess first of all would be, do you want to refer that to committee? Second piece would be, if that's not the case, the direction you'd like me to go in, questions you're looking for, and sort of some direction. I think that making the adjustment that we need to make, either by zoning or by using current language within our ordinances, either one of them would be easy to get to the endpoint if that's the direction that the council would like to see. Or if you'd like to send it to a committee, we can do it that way.
You know, I think there are a lot of steps before this gets up for a serious discussion. One of the first places of a first discussion I would have is if wherever this person is suggesting would be a good place for a casino, that you as a city manager immediately engage that city council.
With one of them, we've had that conversation.
Start doesn't stop
Yeah.
right there.
We've been having that conversation with that direct board, council.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I do the same thing, and I would move that we, for this to the ordinance committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, I ask the clerk to call the roll, send this item to the ordinance committee.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Booker,
yes,
Counselor Crouch.
Yeah.
5 votes in the affirmative. The ordinance committee will now take that matter up. Item number 21F, which is the appointment of Ward 5 and Ward 6 moderators per Laconia City Charter, Section 2.05. All vacancies in the office of moderator, ward clerk, or selectman shall be filled by the city council. Appointments will be valid until the end of December 2023. After the next city election to the end of December 2023, which is after the next city election in November 2023. The council is requested to consider the following appointments. Appointment of Claire Hebert Dow for moderator for Ward 5. Appointment of John Intorcio for moderator for Ward 6. This is brought forward by Katie Gargano, our city clerk. She's asked the city council to consider approving the appointments as presented. Right now, be looking for a motion to appoint Claire Hebert Dow for moderator for Ward 5 and John Intorcio for moderator for Ward 6, with terms expiring at the end of December 2023.
I'd like,
For both.
can we have some discussion first?
Well, if you make the motion, then you put it on the floor, it opens it up for discussion.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Thank you. So made by Counselor Hogan. Is there a second on this motion? Counselor Cheney, is there any further discussion on this motion? Counselor Felch.
So I'm looking at Ward 6, which had 2 people file for this position coming forward to the election in November. And one of these people that's being recommended for Ward 6 is one of the people that filed. So he'll be on the ballot as the moderator. How is this decision made? How did he come up to be the person instead of maybe the other person? Is there an application process? How is this done?
So the question referred to the city clerk, are you prepared to answer that or do you need some time?
No, I can answer it. So the second applicant, I believe his name is Mr. Brasso, who filed. He is retiring at the beginning of this year and he is not able to work since fall election and he would like to help out at the ward. And he put his name on for moderator. Mr. Intorcio is available to work in the November election.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion in regards to this motion?
I guess the other question was, is there any type of application process or does they just come in and say, I want to do this?
There is no application process. They just come in and express their interest and I explain to them what the position entails. And they tell me if they want to do it or not.
Something like city council.
No.
You know, Michael.
Thank you, Bruce.
Any further questions or discussion on the motion on the floor?
No.
Seeing none, as clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie.
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Bogart,
yes,
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative and that motion passes. So you may not have any paperwork in your packet. Are we going to go over 21G?
Yes.
Yeah. Discussion on adding an electronic no turn signal at Elm Street, Union Avenue intersection in Lakeville.
Yep, so we had a concerned citizen send a letter to myself, actually came in and visited with me and sent it to you guys as well. Concerned with the failure to stop for vehicles turning in the different directions in the Lakeport Elm Street intersection. Even with the no walk signs. Especially during some of the shows at Lakeport Opera House. A couple of the suggestions that were made to work congruently with each other. One was to increase some of the police presence during larger events that happen in those areas. I know I spoke to the police chief. I think Councilor Cheney spoke to the police chief about this. And they're working on that. The other piece of it was to look at adding the electronic no turn signs, the large square signs with the no turn signal like we have at the Main Street, Union Court Street intersection. We looked up the pricing on that. Councilor Felch asked if we could actually go out and get the quote on that to what the price would be and bring back to you. So that's why it's on your agenda tonight. We did get the price back on it. It'll be just under 25,000 to increase to put those signs up on the on those intersections and that's where it lands. Like I said, we were asked to get on the agenda tonight, and that's what this discussion's about.
So if this meets with the council approval, where would the funds come from to pay for that?
I would suggest taking out a non-capital reserve.
Councilor Susie.
is it just the sign, or you're also gonna have is it all gonna be like it is in Point Main?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Felch.
And I will say, I go through that intersection every day many times. And it's happening more than just during the show. So small signs with a little hand up. If you're not looking for it, you don't see it. There's no excuse, of course, you should be looking for it, but I think it's really warranted to have it there with everything going on in Lakeport and growing like it is. I would make the motion to approve that.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor right now for the appropriation and the installation of these lights, made by Council Felch. Is there a second? Second by Council Susie. Is there further discussion on this? Seeing none, I ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Bogart,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes. 5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 21H, resolution 2023-21, Laconia Fire Department request to accept a federal emergency management agency FEMA assistance to firefighters grant. This is a request from the Laconia Fire Department to accept a grant award of $24,931.80 to be used for the purchase of technical rescue equipment. The city's share for this grant is 5% or $1,246.60. The grant acceptance is recommended due to the fire department's current technical rescue equipment no longer meeting industry standards. This was submitted by Laconia Fire Chief Tim Jubert. We have 3 motions in front of us. The first is to waive the reading of resolution 2023-21 in its entirety and read by title only, so made by Council Cheney, seconded by Council Felch. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Bogart,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Next, we're looking for a motion to move the first reading of resolution 2023-21 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and extend an assistance to firefighters grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $24,931.80. So made by Council Phelps, seconded by Council Haynes. Any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Bogart,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. And finally, on this matter, looking for a motion to move to schedule a public hearing on August 28, 2023, during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Bogart,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to agenda item 22, which is our unfinished business. Item 22A is a resolution 2023-17, request to submit a grant application on behalf of the Lakes Region Community Developers relating to the demolition of a dilapidated building at 1719 Bay Street. Kirk, would you just lead us through that a bit?
Absolutely. So Lake Street Community Developers is looking to acquire the property down at 17 Bay Street. As has been discussed, I know we've had discussions here as well as some other boards. They are still working through their some other boards and some waivers that they're looking for and some other variances. So they still have some work to do before they can actually sign on the property. Because they need to make sure that they can build it to what they're looking to build. If that all is passed, there is an opportunity for the city to partner with them and obtain some invest in H money, which came through the ARPA Gopher Fund money, to help the demolition of dilapidated buildings, essentially, as long as you're building housing that fits affordable housing, low-income housing, transitional housing, those types of properties. So if all of their variances go through and if they're given the approval to build what they're looking to build, they're gonna buy the property. We'll have submitted the application if this is passed for the grant, and then we would be able to partner with them to get the building torn down and they can move forward with their project. Again, like was discussed, this has nothing to do with their actual application and what they're looking to build. This is if they get that, we can help them go through the process. The demolition money can go to private, it can go to any organization really, but the municipality has to be the one that takes the lead on the grant, and that's why we're doing this.
Is there any city contribution to this?
There is not.
Councilor Susan.
My only question to this is that we doing this too quickly. Should we wait to see if the other boards or other things they could get through hurdles, give them the approval before, because it almost seems like the city council or the city, excuse me, is endorsing it. Okay, and I know I've heard some citizens that they're not in favor of this. I spoke with one today at length. And I'm wondering if we should be holding back and say, if you get the approvals from all the other boards, zoning board, planning, whatever else has to be done, then we'll say, okay to this, man. That's my question.
We've had discussions with, the Invest in H, Bureau of Economic Affairs, and they know that this grant application would essentially be sitting on their desk. If Lakeshore Community Developers goes through all their processes and purchase it, they'll submit it. If they don't, it's gonna get ripped up and moved on. So there's no there's no endorsement, and we actually wrote it in here that way. There's no endorsement. This is if it goes through all the letter. Certainly your decision doesn't
All right, Invest New Hampshire is looking at it that way, but all the other city boards, seeing the city council take that action, is looking at it like the city council is looking at it.
So I don't see it that way at all. I see it, this is sort of perfunctory in nature that, the planning board and zoning board certainly have their work cut out for them. They've raised a few questions. I think the applicants are completing their due diligence. I don't know what state they're in right now as far as that goes. But I don't think this is giving it a stamp of approval from the city council. I mean, I think it's perfunctory in that, if we can go right up to the line and speaking for the Invest in H funds, maybe it prevents that $60,000 from drying up and just disappearing to the state level. Not saying that it would, but crazier things have happened. So
I've been hearing a lot of, from my.
sure. Council Chief, I'm sorry.
I do think there was a legitimate question about the owner of the property. I don't know, if insurance monies were paid, no? And
Third hand knowledge, but there was no insurance.
I just think we ought to look into that before. I agree with the mayor, this is perfunctory, but, and I will vote to agree to it. I just hope we look at.
Councilor Bogart. Go right ahead.
He's muted.
You seem to be muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said the question got answered about the insurance and the homeowner, so thank you.
Councilor College.
I think it's just a matter of us being proactive and getting a grant in, so we'll have the money if we need it.
I can vote for this grant application. I just hope we'll do some looking to see if there's anywhere else we can.
Mr. Mayor, I guess my question, Kurt, is there a time frame that this application is, is there a date that if you don't apply for it, then
There's no, but there's once the money's used, it's gone. There is a finite amount of money. It hasn't been a huge rush on it right now. But we don't know what else other councils are looking at, right, and if there's more, so.
if I might, Mr. Mayor, I think Councilor Susie raises a question, and I understand the ramifications of that, but I do think seeing it being taken up by the planning board, by the zoning board of adjustment. I represent my constituents, and I think we're rushing into this. If there's no time frame, at least wait till the next meeting to see what the zoning board has to say. I just feel that and I don't want to put words in Councilor Susie's, but I think we're backing into it. I think that if we, the grants there, then, well, why aren't we moving towards this? So I'd like to make a motion that we table this until at least the next meeting.
Motion to table is not available. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Councilor Susie. Ask the clerk to call the roll on the tabling motion.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yeah,
Counselor Bogart,
yes,
Counselor Felch.
No. That's 4-1 for the tabling motion. That item is not there. Item number 22B, which is a resolution 2023-18 relating to the acceptance of a grant from the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority for improvements to Levitt Park and the Levitt Park House. I'll go through this briefly. In March 2023, CDFA invited communities to file grant applications under its Community Center Investment Program. Program provides funding to rehabilitate, improve, or build community centers and related facilities whose primary function is recreation, social welfare, community improvement, and public assembly. In response, to Parks and Facility staff, working with finance staff, Councilor Felch and Levitt Park community volunteers developed a proposal consisting of several improvements at Levitt Park to enhance the utility of both the park house and the park in general. Park house improvements consist of upgrades to the park house flooring, lighting, public address, and audiovisual systems. The proposal also provides for the construction of a gazebo attached to the park house to be used for community concerts and similar programs. The construction of the gazebo has been a long-term goal of the Levitt Park Community Volunteer Group. The proposal includes two major improvements to the park in general. These are the restoration of the existing walking trail and reconstruction of the existing playground. Playground restoration includes replacement of old equipment with the new ADA compatible equipment and related improvements. Overall cost of the project is $462,200. Proposed CDF grant funds 85% of this amount, or $392,870. The remaining 50% will be provided through a donation from the Levitt Park Community Volunteers, $25,000, Levitt Park Trust, $25,000, and Parks Department impact fees, $19,330. At the July 24th, 2023 City Council meeting, a motion was approved to schedule a public hearing on this matter. Public hearing was held earlier this evening, tonight's meeting. Acceptance of this grant will reduce impact fees available for Parks and Recreation uses by $19,300, leaving a balance of $14,468.92. This report was submitted by Amy Lovisic, Recreation Facilities Director. We're looking for a motion, a set of three motions here. First one is to move to waive the reading of Resolution 2023-18 relating to the acceptance of a grant from the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority for improvements to Levitt Park and the Levitt Park House, and to read by title only. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Felch. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilor Cheney,
Yes.
Councilor Susie.
Yes.
Councilor Hain.
Yes.
Councilor Bogart,
yes,
Councilor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Next, we're looking to move a second reading of Resolution 2023-18 relating to the acceptance of a grant from the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority for improvements to Levitt Park and Levitt Park House. Made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Hain. Any further discussion? Seeing none, ask clerk to please call.
Councilor Cheney,
Yes.
Councilor Susie.
Yes.
Councilor Hain.
Yes.
Councilor Bogart,
yes,
Councilor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. And finally, looking for a motion to move to approve Resolution 2023-18 relating to the acceptance of a grant from the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority for improvements to Levitt Park and the Levitt Park House as presented, and to authorize the city manager to sign all documents relating to this matter. So made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Susie. Any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cheney,
Yes.
Councilor Susie.
Yes.
Councilor Hain.
Yes.
Councilor Bogart,
yes,
Councilor Felch.
Yes.
That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passed. Right now, under 22C, under unfinished business, is continued discussion of ownership and maintenance of Pickerel Pond Road. As Kirk, to lead us in that discussion.
So following the last, during the last council meeting, the discussion was brought up on the information that's been brought forward to the council, that appears to state that the city has owned it or has accepted this many, many years ago. As I said, our attorneys are not, they're a little non-committal on that. So the question came from this council as to, well, can we just say, yes, we believe this information? And so I brought that back to the attorneys. And essentially they gave me this direction. You have really three options if we want to do this way. Number one would be to just say, to roll the dice and say, yes, you guys say we own it, we own it. And if anything comes forward in a negative connotation, we would have to go through the legal process with that.
So let me stop you right there.
Yep,
If we say we own it tonight. The negative, the possibility, our exposure is that a private party steps forward and says, no, you don't, I do,
correct.
okay?
The other end of the spectrum would be to go through the full accept as is program like we've done with many other streets in the city. Those are the two ends of your spectrum that you could go on. The third alternative, or the third option is, it's in the middle, but a little bit on the safer side, is to formulate a document, send it out to all the property owners on Pickle Pond Road and say, this is the understanding of the council, with it, kind of give them a little background of what's been going on. And look for, does anybody dispute the claim that we own this? And what I would say is it would be the alternative to, or the opposite end of what we've seen come forward from some of the other property owners on Pickle Pond Road. It gives us the ability to say, we're still saying, yeah, we believe we own this. Does anybody dispute it? Not necessarily speak now, forever hold your peace, but we would know that, you know, maybe there's an owner out there that has contradictory information. That was our, you know, and our lawyers felt very comfortable with that. I've started working up a draft version of that letter, and could easily get that out in the next, you know, probably the end of this week. To the property owners, if that's the direction the council would like to see me go, it's essentially saying that you guys are believing that we own this. Does anybody dispute it?
Well, that sounds like a judicious approach to it, as much as I would like to. Just go ahead. We own it tonight.
And as I reminded that you are.
This is painful, so I think what we should probably do is. We waited this long. Why don't we be a little more cautious? That'd be my recommendation, but I'll look to Councilor Cheney. And I don't even know if you want to speak to that. Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna abstain from it,
Gotcha.
from any.
How long do we expect this process to take?
I can get the letter out, I would say this week, beginning of next week, the absolute latest. 10 days, you know, to respond, 10 to 14 days like we normally do for anything, and we'll have an answer back.
You know, I would also suggest putting something.
Do that as well.
Just post it. So I'd like to come back at the next meeting and say, okay, people have had an opportunity to respond to this. We have not heard a thing. I think the right thing to do is. Hearing something that's contrary and overwhelming. I think we're gonna resolve this and be cautious about it. Okay, 22D, discussion of the purchase of the vehicle for the fire department.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, that's on the agenda at my request. I would suggest to my fellow councilmen that this is not just a vehicle for folks to ride around in, it's one necessary to get the job done. I joke about the fact that I was a cop for 25 years, so it's hard for me to say anything nice about firemen, but I gotta tell you, since I've been here, I always liked firemen when I was a cop, but my respect for the job that our fire department does is almost impossible for me to give proper credit to. These people do it all. This guy and his predecessors started this. Our present fire chief is doing an amazing job. In my mind, I see the man walking around downtown looking at stuff. That for them to ask for a car and for us to say no is, for me, a very difficult pill to swallow. There's a question about whether they need all the equipment that the vehicle needs. I'm sure he'll do the best he can, keep the price down. I think he's found a reasonably priced vehicle. I ask you all to vote in favor of this. The funds, as I understand it, exist. I think the mayor was one who brought up where the funds could come from. And please, let's show our fire department and our police department, but tonight, our fire department, how much we respect their request and give them the vehicle they need. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Kirk, would you
what's the motion we have here? We don't really have one on the table, but maybe before we do something here, we should flush one out. We need a public.
No, you wouldn't need, you wouldn't need to be public. This would be just, similar to the motion you made with the lights, make a motion for, Chief Hubert could give us the number of what he's looking for, dollar figure wise, up to that amount. Because I know his numbers changed a little bit since what we talked about earlier, in a positive way. To expend, my, for the purchase of the vehicle.
What's the dollar amount?
Not to exceed 65,000.
Not to exceed 65,000, which was what was in the budgeted money that we cut back on during some of the cuts.
Okay. All right, so walk me through this just one more time. I'm sorry, I've been a long day. This money has already been allocated in this budget.
No, it was originally in the budget. It was one of the cuts that was made during
Okay,
when things were being cut, scaled back. So it was one of the areas that was taken away.
so Councilor Cheney would like to put this back into the fire department budget up to $65,000.
Yep, so it would be,
Pay for this vehicle.
Yep.
And help me understand, again, where that money comes from and how that impacts.
due to some changes in some, I had unspent some ARPA money that I thought I was going to spend that didn't end up coming through, and that would be my recommendation of where it would come from.
So moved.
Very good. Third. Any further discussion?
I agree with Council Cheney 100%. The fire department and our police departments do a great job. One thing I did forget to mention earlier is they had National Night Out last week. And the fire department, police department, everybody worked together and put on a great event. It was well turned out. Just a great event. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion on the table? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Key,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yeah.
Counselor Grover,
yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Thank you. I'd like to adjourn city council meeting at 9:06 PM.